Hello, hello, hello. After a week off of unseen unfortunate events, we are back live here in studio, the ETV Pit Report. Myself, Kyle Tarasco, along with Dakota Ehrman this week. Josh Gerlach has the week off, so Dakota, first time on the show, going to help me co-host tonight. How you doing, my friend?
Doing all right. Kind of excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. So let's just get a couple of things straight. Last week was a very hectic week. I was in Daytona for Speed Weeks, and I was hoping to have the live report for y'all from the track, but just that didn't work out. So, but we're here this week. Just some news with Josh. He was in a car accident earlier this week on the interstate. He is all right. He was released from the hospital, but he's kind of banged up a little bit. So he's at home resting, so we gave him the night off tonight, so just keep him in your thoughts. But he is A-okay, just resting up. But just want to let y'all know that he would love to be here, and who knows, maybe he might pop in at some point during the show. And as for him, if anyone else, if any of our viewers want to pop in during our show, our phone number is 1-317-489-9388. So let's talk about Dakota. I'm sure you were fully aware of what happened in Daytona last week. So I guess let's cover all the speed weeks. I guess from the NASCAR side of things, we could start with the Sprint Unlimited the week before, and then we'll talk about the duels and trucks, and then the I think we just lost Dakota. All right. Well, we just lost Dakota, so I'm just going to go on and keep talking here. Going to discuss a little bit about the Sprint Unlimited, the duels, the truck race, the very popular nationwide race, and then, of course, the 55th running of the Daytona 500. It was a very eventful speed weeks, to say the least. I think the Sprint Unlimited was a fairly decent race. A lot of people complained about the single file racing, which we'll get to coming up in the Daytona 500 up here in a few minutes. The racing was good. Kevin Harvick put on a good show at the end. He made a good move. The one thing I liked was that, because I was never a fan of tandem racing, although it produced a lot more passing, just the whole fact that a driver had to rely on another partner to push him around the whole track, that's not needed anymore. You could make moves on your own. You could pull out. You could get out. You could, especially when I was at the track watching just the races Thursday and Sunday, a lot of side drafting was involved, something that we haven't seen in a few years where it really was effective, just trying to take the air off of the guy to your inside or outside. So that worked out pretty good, in my opinion. Put on a good show for the racing, except for the single file. Like I said, Kevin Harvick put on a good move against Greg Biffle with the block. I think he blocked Tony Stewart, then he came back up the track to block Biffle, and Biffle had nowhere to go and took the air off of his nose, and Harvick came around and very strategically won the race. And then Sunday, history for sure was made with Danica Patrick becoming the first woman not only to become the pole sitter for Daytona 500, the biggest race, but to be the pole sitter for the in the Sprint Cup Series in general, the first woman to ever do so. I think that was very cool, let alone that Daytona is all about the car, to say the least, and when it comes to the driver. I mean, you still need a pilot to fly the airplane, even if it is on autopilot. I mean, that's my opinion of it. She still had to muscle that car around there for 2 laps and run the perfect line, and she accomplished that. And she put on a hell of a showing in the 500. Speed on Thursday, she kind of just rode around in the back for her dual race. She was in the first one as she started on the pole. I think that was done on purpose just to save the cars, because the wrecks were very, very popular, it seemed, that this past week in Daytona. You could talk to Carl Edwards. He tore up 4 cars and 5 wrecks. I'm sure he couldn't wait to get out of Florida. And but yeah, Danica, I'm proud of her. I was impressed. I think it's good for the sport. The NASCAR was in the news for the whole week, and I think that was good. The ratings, I don't know the exact numbers, but I know they were the highest since 2006. So that was good to see. The sport got a lot of attention this week, and it's important for the sport to get a lot of attention during this time of the year in February for the biggest race of the year. So anyone has an opinion on that, remember you could call us. You could also tweet to us at ETV Pit Report. Since I am the only person in studio right now, and Josh is on painkillers, and I don't know what happened to Dakota, I would love to hear from you kind people if there's anyone out there listening to me blabber for the next 55 minutes. So as we continue on in this first segment, talking about Danica Patrick, and we kind of going to lead into the duels a little bit. Very uneventful race. As you all know, our diehard listeners, I was there for the duels, and it was a snooze fest. I think a lot of guys were just riding around and just trying to save their equipment for the big race on Sunday, which is understandable, but it was just disappointing to see all the single file racing and the guys, they really couldn't get a run on each other. And like I said, I'm not a fan of the tandem racing, but I'm also not a fan of single file racing. The single file racing would have been a lot better if they were able to do the slingshot. Even though I'm only 19, I'm a big fan of the sport and the sports history, and I enjoy watching old races from like the late 70s and the 80s and through the early 90s when the slingshot was really an effective tool that the guys used. I know Cale Yarborough, he really made that work. Widely known for making that work at Daytona. That's when he won the back-to-back 500s, I believe, in I think it was 83 and 84 in the Hardy's car. But yeah, it was unfortunately I don't know if the cars just weren't able to do so because of that pocket of air that that was one of the main topics of discussion. And oh, I just got a tweet from Josh Gerlach. He says that he loves me and he's not 100% and he wishes that he was here. Well, Josh, we would love to hear from you. I'm sure our viewers and our listeners would. So if you'd like to come in and give us a quick call, or if you'd like to keep tweeting to me, that's cool too. Either way, I don't care. At least I know that you're up and you're not high on life right now on painkillers. So anyway, just talking as we continue on with the discussions with the pit report on this pit report edition with the Daytona 500 talks, with single file racing and all that good stuff. We're going to take a quick commercial break here. We'll be back in a couple of minutes, and we'll continue, maybe take some phone calls. And this is Kyle Taraska on the ETV Live Pit Report, powered by the HD Radio Network.
Hi, I'm Angela Hall, CEO for Halls on Post Incorporated. We are the premier income tax preparers to the sim racing community. You sim racers know that where you live is not a barrier to working with others. So please do not let your local income tax prep stores hijack you into paying their expensive fees up front by taking them right out of your refund. Here at Halls on Post, we do things a lot differently. We will prepare your return, review it with you, e-file it, and release your file copy, and you will not have to pay in advance for any of these services. Sim racers, please believe me when I tell you that we are the only tax practice out there that will allow you to pay after you receive your refund. The only catch is this: you promise me that when your refund arrives, you will make Halls on Post Incorporated the very first check you write. So make the switch to Halls on Post Inc. We will hop right on it and treat you respectfully, discreetly, and fairly. No gimmicks and no hidden fees.
Sponsored by Bob Earl Racing, VRC Virtual Racing Chassis, Real Sum Racing Full Throttle Cup Series returns to ETV Live in 2013 every Monday night, 9:20 p.m. Eastern. A full 36-week season. Join Mike Keaton and Wesley Allen as they call the action from the booth, and Dakota Ehrman reporting from Pit Road. Strap in and buckle down, Cowboy. 2013 Full Throttle Cup Series on Monday night is back in the saddle again. Flag-to-flag coverage provided by ETV Live, the only choice for your online racing broadcast entertainment. See us at etv-eplay.net.
John, can you hear me? All right, back here on the ETV Pit Report, presented by Halls on Post. It's still tax season. Visit hallsonpost.com for all your tax and accounting service needs during this lovely tax season as we head into the spring months here. And after talking to myself for about 10 minutes, finally, Dakota Ehrman, he is back in the saddle again. Dakota, welcome back to the show for the second time in about 10 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Technical difficulties?
Yeah, really, technical difficulties leave me hanging talking to myself. I was making myself go to sleep here, so. But the good news is, while you were gone, we got a tweet from Josh saying that he's not feeling 100%, but he is doing well. Just want to let everyone know. So that's a positive thing. So while you were MIA, I started talking about, just covered the Sprint Unlimited a little bit, and I got in depth a little bit with Danica, how she made history last Sunday, if you want to give an opinion on that, and just start talking with single file racing, which was the headliner of the 500, unfortunately, and just your opinion on that.
Well, first off, on the Danica deal, I mean, she did start up front, but she didn't last that long. I mean, she rode around up there all race, but she didn't lead many laps. She's about a total of 5, I believe, and was just kind of, hanging around. I don't know. I don't think she played the strategy right in the end. She could have done a little bit better, but, she did all right for one of her, first few starts at Daytona, I would say, in the new car, at least. I know everybody was still learning with that car.
You only think she did all right? I think she did. Right. I think she did friggin' awesome, man. For the first, all right. Here's the scenario. The first time she's been in a Cup car at Daytona, or no, she ran the 500 last year, but I don't like to count that because she ran one lap and she got taken out. So pretty much her first race in the 500 in the Cup car, brand new car, starts on the pole. She stayed up. I think the lowest position she dropped back, even through pit stops and everything, was 11th place. So for the bulk of the day, 200 laps, 500 miles, she ran in the top 10 with the big boys. And yes, a lot of it was single file racing, but even at the points when it got real racy, 2-3 wide, she was able to hold her own, and she stayed up there the whole time. I thought it was impressive.
Yeah, I mean, if you do look at how many laps she did complete last year, I guess she did do fantastic compared to that this year, you might say. But, I mean, for being single-file racing, it could have been worse for her, I would say.
Well, man, I don't know. I think she did, my opinion is she did an awesome job. It was an awesome day for her, an awesome day for the sport. The one thing I liked was the fact that she was disappointed where she finished. Because, I mean, back in the day, even like when she first started in IndyCar, she ran top 10. It was like an outstanding day. But shows that she's competitive, that she's just not there for the money, as the haters like to say. Yes, I think she's overrated, but I think that's the media's fault. I think it's the same thing with Dale Jr., that people say that he's overrated, but I think that's just the media hyping him up. He never asked for any of that. And I don't think Danica really asked for any of it either. She's here to run with the big boys, and she put on a hell of a show. This past Sunday. I'm proud of her, like I said before the commercial break, and I really think she's going to race some eyes brown as Phoenix, too. I think top 15 is realistic for her. I may be going a little bit out on a limb, but I really believe that.
Yeah, she's with a great team, and I think the top 15s, they're easily possible for her right now. I mean, don't get me wrong, I mean, the field is very competitive, but I mean, the people she's with, and, she does have some talent. She's definitely going to be up there, I would say. I don't know how soon it would be. I wouldn't maybe put it at Phoenix, but a few races in, give her some time to get used to the car, as well as everybody else.
So before we jump on to Phoenix, let's keep talking about Daytona here. What's your opinion? What was your opinion of the actual, not an individual driver, but the race in general this past Sunday in the 500? I mean, the pack is back, obviously, but it's not the pack that most race fans really they intended for. Just a lot of single file racing. The bottom, it was really hard to get the bottom moving. And just what was your opinion of the race that you saw? Was it good, bad, average, or how would you grade it?
A little boring, actually. I think I liked the commercials a little bit more than I liked the racing, and that's saying something because there were so many commercials that just don't even start me there. But anyway, it was rather boring. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't quite like it, and I liked the tandem. It changed things, and it was a big bunch of random. That's all you could really say is anybody could be there, anybody could go to the back, switching, and I mean everything was just shaking up. It seemed like every 2 laps, everything was changing. We were side by side. We were doing this. We had 4 wide finishes at the line, 2 rows deep. It was kind of cool, but I mean we come to this, and that was just that was kind of like a, I don't know, nap fest.
See, here's my opinion of it. I think NASCAR's on the right track. I've never been a big fan of the tandem. I don't like the fact that a driver has to 100% rely on another driver in order for him to win the race. It's like trailer racing. You have to have the trailer in the back to make the whole thing go. I mean, for example, that 4 wide finish that Jimmy Johnson won at Talladega that you referred to, I think it was the spring of 2011, he would have never won if the Junior was up his ass pushing him around the whole track. But you don't need that anymore. Johnson, on Sunday, he took the lead. He made the inside lane work. He pulled the train with him. And he pulled, like I said, he pulled the train. The train did not push him. And he got up into line, and he pulled the field around the whole rest of the way. I think he led like the last 12 or 15 laps, maybe, something like that. And he was able to hold Junior off at the end, which personally I was upset about as a Junior fan, but that's a whole other story. And I think the racing is on the right track. I think it's important to make it where the driver it's more in his hands. It's not relied solely on a whole other driver. I understand it's been pissing me off that I've been listening to Sirius XM, and everyone on there, Dave Moody and Chocolate Mars, and all, like, they're all saying, well, everyone, the NASCAR fans, they can't make their mind up because no one liked the tandem racing, so NASCAR gets rid of it. Now we're in the pack, and then no one likes it, and it's like no one could win. But I disagree. I think there's that middle ground that all the race fans are looking for, where you get the pack racing, but you get that 2 to 3 wide racing. Maybe you're not going to get it for a full 500 miles, but I'd rather see 180 laps of 3-wide racing and 20 laps of single file than 20 laps of 3-wide racing and 180 laps of single file.
Yeah, for sure. And well, I do have a question for you. I mean, you did bring up Jimmy Johnson, coming up the inside and taking the lead the last 10 to 12 laps. What's your opinion of him, tearing up the splitter in the grass there?
Oh, I think that's a bunch of BS with all this conspiracy theories or whatever. The guy wanted the biggest race of the year. He wanted to tear up the grass a little bit, and he hit, and the whole splitter jacked up, and it got caught up in the grass. I'm not really, I'm not too concerned about that. I mean, I know they have a history, him and Canals, of pulling some crazy stunts, especially down there in Speed Weeks. It's rare to go down to Daytona in February and not see some type of fine. With the 48 team. I mean, let us not forget, even though this was Jimmy Johnson's second Daytona 500 win, it was the first for crew chief Chad Canals, as Darian Grubb was Johnson's crew chief in 06 after Canals was suspended for God knows, I don't know what the hell they tried to do with the car, but it was something that pissed off NASCAR. But I don't know, I really don't see that much into it. Yeah, I mean, his car was strong, probably had a little bit something in there, but all the teams, they cheat to some extent. It's no secret. It's just a matter if the officials could figure it out or not. If it was that drastic of a move, I'm sure that Junior, Kane, and Gordon, they all would have tore their noses up after the race or something like that too. They would have found a way to do it. So it's really not that big of a deal, in my opinion. What was your opinion of the race on Saturday, though? Let's not talk about the wreck, because I don't want to talk about the wreck yet, because that was scary. But the race itself, I think that was the best race of the weekend.
Well, personally, they were running the iRacing Daytona 500 about the same time. I did try to run that. Ended up crashing out about 100 laps in, so I got to tune into the end of the race. I didn't really get to see much of the end of the race, but the end of the race was fantastic. I loved how the tandem. Again, I'm a big fan of the tandem. I do like the tandem, and I thought the racing was great. They were moving around, and it wasn't quite a snooze fest, personally. And it was fantastic. And up until the thing that I'm not supposed to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, that was the most entertaining race of the season. It was good to see I mean, I kind of liked it, like how you said they were moving around, but it was just a mix. It was a nice mix of the pack and the tandem. I was actually okay with it. You were able to lead the pack without getting pushed, but at the same time, if you did get pushed, it was an advantage to you. And I mean, it was nice. Like, even I know the middle point of the race, I think it was Kenseth and Kyle Busch. They kind of tandem way up there before Kyle Busch blew his motor. And it only lasted for like 2 or 3 laps, and the field eventually golfed them right back up. But that was the best race of the season, or the best race of the Speed Weeks, for sure. The truck race was entertaining. I thought that was one of the best races at the Speed Weeks as well. The finish kind of got screwed up with I forgot who wrecked, but those back markers that wrecked at the end, and they had to wreck right at the line. It was just it was like in the worst spot possible. Excuse me. It really screwed the finish up. It screwed the race up, but overall, like we said, other than the wreck, I think the nationwide race was the best race of the weekend. And on that note, if you have an opinion on any of the races so far we talked about, 1-317-489-9388. We're going to take another quick commercial break here, and we'll get back to your calls on the other side of the break. This is the ETV Live Pit Report with Kyle Taraska and Dakota Ehrman, powered by the HD Radio Network.
Sponsored by Barbaro Racing, VRC Virtual Racing Chassis, Real Sum Racing, Full Throttle Cup Series returns to ETV Live in 2013 every Monday night, 9:20 p.m. Eastern. A full 36-week season. Join Mike Keaton and Wesley Allen as they call the action from the booth, and Dakota Ehrman reporting from pit road. Strap in and buckle down, cowboy. 2013 Full Throttle Cup Series on Monday night is back in the saddle again. Flag-to-flag coverage provided by ETV Live, the only choice for your online racing broadcast entertainment. See us at etv-eplay.net.
Simulation controls and performance computers that are innovative and at the highest level of design and application standard. They work hand in hand with professionals throughout real-world racing to provide technology and fabrication industry's highest level of unmatched quality. Made in the USA, people. Check them out today. Your place for your highest gaming simulation standard. www.GorillaCustoms.com.
Team Racing Series returns to ETV Live on Tuesday nights following the Fast Track Racing Series radio show. After organizing a highly successful team series in 2010, Jerry Wolf is back with some kick butt, take no prisoners, team racing action like you have never seen before. The ETV Live Team Racing Series is sponsored by HD Radio Network live on Tuesday nights from 9 p.m. Eastern. Don't wimp out, dude. Catch the action live at etv-eplay.com.
On what took place in the down by the beach in Daytona, Florida, this past week for Speed Weeks 2013. So far we covered the Unlimited. We talked about Danica Mania, Cup cars, nationwide trucks, everything that had to go. Before we finish up with the nationwide wreck, I know we've been jumping around a little bit, Dakota, but let's talk about the Battle at the Beach, a new event that NASCAR hosted this year. They pulled out about a four-tenths of a mile short track on the backstretch that used the NASCAR portion of the backstretch as long as the big apron they have down there. And it was a non-points event. It involved the late models, modifieds, and K&N series. And it was an all-star event for them, but it really gave them some attention being on Speed Channel. And quite the eventful couple of nights down there, Dakota, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, for sure. I know the highlight of the week had to be Kyle Larson. Correct me if I'm wrong there.
Well, Kyle Larson, he made the highlight reel for, I think, too many reasons this week. And I think they were all, there were no reasons that he would want to get TV time and publicity for. But I think there were too many wrecks, obviously. I wasn't a fan of the fact that there were 3 races over the 2 nights, and every single race, the leader on the last lap got dumped, and the second or third place guy or whoever won. Yeah, it made for interesting racing, but I think the best part of it was Mike Stefanik. I think he's still pissed when he said this is BS live on TV, and I think his face expression said it all. I thought it was hilarious, but at the same time, I understood his frustration. And not saying it's any type of joke to get wrecked like down the last lap when you're going to win on the biggest stage, but it was unfortunate for him. I think they're going to need to shorten if they continue to do the event again, which I hope they do. I think they need to shorten up the straightaways a little bit. I think the cars were carrying way too much speed going into the corners, causing a lot of inexperienced drivers to lock up the brakes, overdrive the corners, and just bang into each other like bumper cars.
Yeah, for sure. I think they could reduce the size a little bit, and that would definitely help. And you bringing up his face, it's all over the internet now with the memes and whatnot, right?
Yeah, but all right. So since you brought it up, talking about Kyle Larson, let's talk about that wreck that's brought national attention, bad national attention, to the sport of NASCAR this week. In case you've been living under a rock, you didn't see there was a wreck at the end of the nationwide race come to the finish on Saturday. It involved Reagan Smith and Brad Keselowski. Keselowski was pushing Reagan Smith down the short chute, coming to the tri-oval to take the checkered flag, and Keselowski made a move to the outside. Reagan Smith did the racer's thing to do, and he went to the outside, tried to block him, and he ended up facing headfirst into the wall, and Keselowski went spinning, and all hell broke loose behind him. Eventually, it was like the perfect storm where the 32 car of Larson, he got hit in the perfect spot that made him fly up into the air. Then he hit the fence in the perfect spot, and not saying that. And when I say perfect, I don't mean that this was a good thing. Just saying that the stars aligned for this catastrophe to happen. And he went flying into the fence, kind of like Carl Edwards and Bobby Allison at Talladega in '87 and '09. And unfortunately, pretty much the whole front suspension and the motor and everything, pretty much from the firewall forward, got tore up in the fence, and parts and pieces went into the crowd of grandstands, and 30 people, I believe, ended up in the hospital that night.
Yeah, and I want to start is just the start of this wreck. I want to go back and talk about that. I mean, I was on listening earlier. I was on the Junior Motorsports Racing website, and they talked to Regan Smith about what happened. And what the whole wreck started was he moved up because Keselowski moved up. He felt that they were still connected. He moved up trying to throw the block. He's trying to keep them together so he can win. I would have put him 2 for 2 for Junior Motorsports, which would have been a cool thing. And everybody's going to go for that win at the end. I don't know a racer that's going to sit there and settle for second. Yeah. So he went up. He went to go block, and it's when Keselowski went down to try to go back underneath because he knew what Smith was going to do. They kind of hooked that way, and that's what put Smith in the wall. And then, like you said, with everything that went into the grandstands with Larson's car, I mean, there was a tire, and everything connected to that tire was in the stands. And I mean, there's a video on YouTube that's painful just to watch.
Now let's get something straight for our listeners. I'm sure the listeners that are listening to this show, they understand where we're coming from, or they're going to understand where I'm coming from when I say this. But to the viewers on national television and the idiots on CNN and Fox News that think they know absolutely everything there is to do with life, putting their 2 cents in when it comes to this race, that's one of the things that really pissed me off this week. As you can tell, I'm kind of pissed off tonight. But anyway, all right, we got to... Oh, hang on. We got a caller here. Maybe they're going to give us their 2 cents on the wreck. All right, let me have you on here. Hello, welcome to the Pit Report. You are on live with the Pit Report.
Hello, Kyle.
What's up, man? It's my friend Craig Skelton. How we doing, bud?
Doing well. How about yourself?
We're all right. We're here with Dakota, and you are live on the ETV Live Pit Report. Congratulations. I'm sure it's an accomplishment in your life. So
it is. I'll try not to get kicked off.
Well, you were down there in Daytona with me, and our hot topic right now is the Kyle Larson wreck. That's our main points of discussion right now. You were there. What's your opinion of the wreck? And then I was about to give mine, but since you decided to take time out of your evening to call us, I'll let you go first.
Well, it was a pretty bad deal, but coming to the checkered flag, what are you supposed to do? Do you stay there and finish second, third, however many people pass you, or do you go for the win? Everyone went for the win, and as far as Larson going up into the stands, that's a very bad deal. It's too bad it happened, but that is part of racing. And what really sticks out in my mind is that once the race was over, instead of people talking trash like normal about Tony Stewart winning, it was very subdued. No one was talking, and it was almost, dare I say, a funeral-like atmosphere.
I agree. I mean, it was bad. I mean, as you know, it was bad enough. I was not even in the mood to go karting afterwards. But hey, we could talk about that karting story once we're done with this discussion, if you want, because Saturday night was actually a very interesting night on our end. But anyway, the one thing that the people need to understand that this was a freak accident. This isn't a common thing at a NASCAR race. This isn't the Final Destination movie. This isn't like every time you go to a race, 9 times out of 10 there's going to be a car flying into the grandstands. That just doesn't happen. Just as I said, the stars had to align perfectly in order for the car to get hit in the perfect spot, in order to get airborne, with all the safety that's been made on these cars to keep them on the ground, let alone to hit it in the perfect spot on the fence would actually it hit the gate, the crossover gate for the fans to walk onto the track during the pre-race, not the actual catch fence. I mean, obviously it flew into the catch fence afterwards and everything, and I think that's what the people on CNN, they were trying to put their 2 cents in, it is dangerous, and I don't even know half the crap they said, but people need to understand there's a better chance of going to a baseball game and getting hit with a foul ball line drive than going to a NASCAR race and getting hit with parts and pieces from a car. It's very safe to go to these races, and unfortunately these freak incidents happen. I'm not trying to downgrade the whole thing. I mean, granted, a 3,400-pound stock car almost flew into the grandstand, but the catch fence did its job. It kept the car itself onto the racetrack. The problem was when the car hit the fence, it was almost like a cheese grater, and whatever parts and pieces hit the fence, it just tore the car up. But the bulk of the car stayed on the track. It's just that the pieces and debris scattered into the grandstands, and that's where NASCAR needs to I mean, I'm sure the Indy Racing League, they're going to work on that too, especially after the Dan Weldon wreck a couple years ago at Las Vegas with the catch fence. Something needs to be done to these catch fences where it's safer for the drivers, for, God forbid, if they do hit the fence, the car doesn't blow up into a million pieces.
And recently, in the past probably decade or so, they have made a lot of advances, because I remember when Atlanta hosted an IndyCar race, they had a huge right turn 4. And a tire went up into the stands and took out one of the condos and completely demolished an area of the stand. However, no one was sitting there because it was IndyCar and so smaller crowds. But had someone been sitting there, easily 10, 20 people would have been killed without question. And the fact that they no longer race at Atlanta, and I believe they've added tethers to the wheels, just shows that all racing series are looking to advance technology to keep the fans and the drivers safer, but it's a constant learning process.
And that's the thing. It's a constant learning process, and I think the other main problem too, well, I don't think, I know, is when the drivers, when they sign their waivers to run these race cars, they understand the risk. They know that they're putting their lives in danger. Fans like you, like the three of us here, when we sign up or when we call the ticket office to buy our tickets, we're not signing up to potentially, even though there is a chance there, we don't sign up to put our lives in danger. We go to watch a good race, have a good time with our friends, go home and talk about it on the pit report Thursday nights. And I think when the fans get involved, it brings a whole another spectrum to the whole incident. I mean, to have 30 people going to the hospital, that's a big deal. But like I said, there's probably at least 60 people, 70, 90. I mean, not to pick on baseball again, but I think it was the Texas Rangers last summer. A fan fell off of the railing because he was half-assed drunk, and I think he plunged to his death. I think these sporting events, as much as they are entertaining, they are dangerous. Just not for the players and the athletes themselves, but the fans as well. And I think fans need to take a responsibility in that, knowing that if you're sitting right up in the front, up against the fence, when you have a 3,400-pound vehicle going 200 miles an hour, like within 3 feet of you, you have to understand that there is a potential risk there.
And not everything can be foreseen, like the problems that can go wrong, or things like that.
Yeah,
and I know, Craig, you were going to say something?
Well, I was just going to say that the next day, 24 hours later, everyone's seen the news, and that they take the green flag for the 500, and there are probably 50 people lined up just in front of where I was sitting, not even to mention how many people all the way to turn 1 and back to turn 4. They're lined up next to the fence watching the cars take off.
Yep, that's one thing you were sitting right down the road from me, but yeah, where I was sitting too, I noticed that as well. We have another caller on here. I'm going to bring him. I'll add him to the discussion. Always happy to bring more people onto the ETV Pit Report. All right, 919, you are on the ETV Live Pit Report. How are you doing?
Hey, Kyle, it's Wesley Outland with ETV Live and the Winter is Motorsports Show. Man, I just want to hit on to your topic, dude. I want to say that it's good that folks like me and you are defending the media form of this crazy world of auto racing we're in. Let's face it, racing's a dangerous sport, okay? We know that when we sign our name in the entry list, or these drivers sign their names in the entry list, what happened at Daytona Saturday, and I was there myself. I was also dead East Bay. I've been down at Teams, Kyle, for the whole month of February down in Florida in one shape or form, but it's just a freak accident. But I will say this much, Kyle. I think NASCAR needs to address, and the trucks as well, they need to address a better way of protecting the fans. Let's just face it, like you said, you can't prevent the inevitable. These things are going to happen at any time. They're more likely seldom than none. Let's face it, the last time a car got up in the air for NASCAR and the catch fence was at Talladega. Henceforth, Kyle, do you think that NASCAR should have maybe looked at that when Keselowski, Edwards, and Newman and all them got in a big wreck at Talladega? Or is it, okay, this is a freak accident, we need to do something else here?
Well, I think...
And being what took place Saturday.
Well, I think NASCAR, they did take a step or they attempted to take a step in the right direction after the Carl Edwards incident, but obviously was not enough. What they did do at both Talladega and Daytona for the 2010 season, they raised the catch fence, I believe, about 10 feet. And it worked because I remember the truck race last year. Joey Coulter got up in the fence and he just rode right along the fence. The fence stayed up. It did its job. It kept the car in. The fans were safe.
Right.
But it didn't. But the problem with that, the 22 truck, he rode up against the fence. He didn't fly into the fence. And I think that's where the problem comes in. Not when the car just let alone gets up against the fence, but when it impacts into the fence as if it was hitting the wall. Now,
Well, I don't know if you've seen the replay, but I was actually in the media center, okay? When this whole deal broke out, people kept saying, oh, the tire went through the fence. No, it did not. The impact was so forceful on Kyle Larson's 32 car that it went over the catches.
yes, yes.
So you're talking about a fenced area that's around 25 feet tall. I mean, let's face it, Kyle, that's about as high a catch fence is at Daytona. And something of the brunt of that force pushed that type of equipment into the stand. Bottom line is this. People like me and you in the media, we take that risk going to the racetrack. We know that anything can happen. It's like I said on my radio show tonight. I about got hit on pit road at a short track and a guy going about 35, 40 miles an hour, and if I had not turned and looked, it would have been a goner. But that's just the risk you take. You shake your head and you say, man, I can't believe I survived that, and you go on. The sad thing is there's got to be something done, and I believe it's coming after this, Kyle, where we've got to protect the fans. I think the stands have got to be set back more, and I'll tell you this much. What a prime example, what a prime place to have these grandstands be pushed back more since the announcement was made last week at Daytona about the new creation of the new Daytona International Speedway. By the way, if you have not seen that, you need to go to NASCAR.com. Actually, go to the Daytona International Speedway website. Go to their YouTube channel, Kyle, and that is very impressive. They're talking about a state-of-the-art facility, talking about 40 escalators, and in doing so, I think Joey Chitwood III is going to say, okay, well, in midst of all of this construction, let's push the grandstands back about 20.
Well, I think you know as well as anyone that both of us, we've been on top of this ever since this goes back to the Sprint Media Tour where they announced that they were going to build, they didn't have the specifics, but how they were going to add the 250,000 seats on the front stretch, which yeah. I don't know if your opinion has changed to that after spending a week or so in the media center, but I still think that's absolutely monotonous. But that's not involved in this wreck, obviously. I think they need to move the seats back. I think that's a start. One thing that I don't like at Daytona, which I've noticed, because Dover is one of my home tracks, and we go to both Dover NASCAR races every year. The way how the grandstands are constructed on the front stretch, you can walk right up to the fence at Dover. But,
exactly.
But what they do is even though it's not like a protective barrier or anything like that, they set up a rope. Okay, they set up a rope that blocks and with security people there that keeps about the fans 5 feet back that walk along the front stretch. It keeps them back off against the fence so they can't go up and lean on the fence or whatever. Now at Daytona, there are signs posted everywhere not to stop or stand or whatever along the fence, and there are security people there, but there's no rope, there's no protective barrier, there's no anything like that. And that's the one thing that really concerned me initially because I was sitting in Keach Tower, which is at the exit of pit road. Craig, where were you sitting for the race?
Next section over.
Oh, okay. So you were right. So you kind of had the same perspective as me. And it was hard, like from what I saw initially, I could not tell that the tire flew into the stands. But the one thing that bothers me, before we move the stands back, we have to move the people back. If there's no barrier for 1,000 people to walk 5 feet forward or lean up against the fence, it don't matter how many security guards are there. If the people are going to want to do it, the security can only do so much. Kind of like an enter at your own risk type of deal. They need to have at least a rope or something like that, a barrier to prevent the fans from leaning up against the fence. Because I believe one lady, her leg was broken by being hit by the whole engine block when the engine got got all tangled up in the fence. But I'm sure
Right,
if
but
she
it got
was,
severed in the catch fence, yeah.
right, but if she was another 10 feet back, she might have. I mean, God forbid, she might have got hit by debris or sheet metal or anything like that that flew through the air. But that could have prevented that if she just was not permitted to, if there was something blocking her from leaning up or walking right up against that fence. And especially,
Well,
I mean, you know as well as anybody. I mean, Craig, you could attest to this too because you were there. When it's the last lap of the race and you're on the front stretch at the start-finish line, and if there's any way that people can get right up on that catch fence to get as close to the action as they can for the finish,
exactly.
you know damn well they're going to try to get there.
Absolutely, and that's like, for instance, before I went into the media center on Sunday for the 500. And by the way, I just want to tell all the viewers out there on the Pit Report that the reason why the 500 was the way it turned out Sunday was because NASCAR put the fear of God in these drivers, and also it was a decision amongst the racing teams. Hey, instead of going out there and turning up millions of dollars in equipment and doing something stupid like what happened yesterday, let's just go out here and take our time. But I will say this much though, Kyle, and I've stressed so much about the Gen 6 car on my radio show form. I talk about it on your show as well. By the way, you and Josh and Kyle do a great job as always. I love tuning to you on Thursday night when I'm not doing anything. By the way, don't forget RSR Throttle Cup Series, the Thursday night Asphalt Assault coming up. Michael Keaton, Dakota Ehrman, calling Matt at Daytona.
Check it out.
Absolutely. 9 Eastern. I will actually be off because I'm actually committed to doing another announcement. I'm actually going to be Georgia bound as well. But I'll just say this much, Kyle, in closing. It's a freak deal with what happened.
Yes.
But the thing is this: we as the media, us as racing media, we did a great job. I have to honestly say, when Alan Bessel came into the media center on Saturday afternoon before I left to go down there to East Bay, I looked at him and I shook his hand and I said, you know what? You guys done a hell of a job on the coverage. It didn't show the replay again. There was a solemn type, mood to the broadcast, like you said. And the number one guy that I got to give credit to is Tony Stewart. He survived the Derby and went on to win the race, but was humble. And the biggest concern was it's about these fans in them stands. We don't, we take the risk when we go out there and run, or when we go to these races. These fans, yes, on the back of a ticket it says blah, 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 and if something happens, we're not held responsible. Look, that's BS, okay? I'm going to tell you something. There's lawsuits that are coming. There's already been people I've talked to from Florida that have already said lawsuits have been filed against Daytona and NASCAR.
There has been at least 3 that have been noted. There have been at least 3.
There's 3 of them. And here's the thing that really pisses me off, and I'll say this in closing, and it's the scumbag censor media. And I'm not talking about your ESPN or your MRN or your And the Winner Is or your Pit Report. I'm talking about these Nimrod idiots from CNN, SNBC, that don't give a damn about the sport of NASCAR.
Exactly.
They only popped up and they
want
wanted
a news story. They just want a news story. That's exactly what I've been saying. They want their ratings to boost, so they have something to BS about, thinking they know this, that, and everything, but like you were saying...
I'll say this in closing. Before I left to go to East Bay Saturday, me and Bob Pockers with the Sporting News were talking to one another, as well as David Newton. We were coming up the main tunnel. The CNN trucks were pulling in. They said to one of the security guard people, and I couldn't believe this, this is the first thing that the cameraman and the reporter said, how many people are dead? They didn't want to know if anybody was okay. They didn't want to know, what's the extent of the injury.
Because in their eyes, that would not make a good story. They want to talk about who died. They want all the negatives. They want to group all that together. They want to make a story that's going to make the people, that's going to bring attention to them, that's going to boost their ratings. Because in this sick world, people would rather hear about someone getting killed at a motorsports event than I don't know, let's say maybe a firefighter saving 20 lives or something like that in a accident like that. And it's the media's fault, but it's the people of the sick world as well. I don't want to cut you off, but we have about 2 minutes before we go to break. We have another caller here, part of the discussion. 478 area code. You are on the ETV Pit Report. If you want to give your 2 cents on the topic here.
Hey, Kyle, this is Mark Bratcher. It's I haven't talked to you in a long time, but hey, and on this whole deal, man, I just wanted to say, man, I tweeted you. You know, there's nothing that NASCAR or anybody can do. I mean, they can move the seats back, they can move the fence back, but this is completely an event that's unpredictable. You know, so if they move the seats back, and then that tire flew, you know, several rows back, you know, when it hit somebody, and every fan knows the risks that they take, you know, when they go to them things. They know them cars. Everything on that race car did everything safety-wise it was supposed to do. You know, it's just how it broke up. It was like a, you know, like I said, it's like getting hit by lightning. You know, it's just one of them deals that happens. You know, and
Mark
I think
and Kyle, I'll tell you this much before I leave. I'll say this in closing, Kyle, because I know you got Mark on. I was up in the media press box high above the World Center of Racing when that whole deal broke loose. And I'll say this much. You could see the cars coming out of turn 4, and then the next thing you know, there was a bunch of cloud of smoke, destruction, and it looked like you went through World War III. Seriously, that's how it turned out to be.
No, I know. I was there too. I saw it.
Mark says, I agree with Mark, but as a sanctioning body with NASCAR, they are going to have to think of something to protect the fans. It's like I told somebody, I don't want to have on my head going to a racetrack as an announcer or a PR personality. Man, I wonder what's going to happen at this racetrack next. And I have to say this much too, Kyle, and I don't know if anybody wants to admit it, but I'll admit it. Going through my head Sunday, when I got to Daytona for the 500, was, my God, I hope nothing goes wrong today. And I don't know if it's because of what happened Saturday or it's the unknowns of knowing that anything can and will happen. You don't want to have it in your head.
I agree.
But
I don't want to cut you guys off, but we got to go to a commercial break in about 20 seconds here. But like I was saying, I agree with you, and like how Craig said, it was an eerie feeling after the race. I mean, we didn't even know if they were going to even run the race on Sunday. But we'll get to that. Mark, if you want to hang on along with Craig Wesley, we thank him for stopping by on here. For myself and Dakota Ehrman, we're going to take a quick commercial break here on the Pit Report, and we'll continue the discussions from Daytona leading into the last segment here. This is the ETV Live Pit Report, powered by the HD Radio Network, and we'll see you in about 60 seconds.
Hi, I'm Angela Hall, CEO for Halls on Post Incorporated. We are the premier income tax preparers to the sim racing community. You sim racers know that where you live is not a barrier to working with others. So please do not let your local income tax prep stores hijack you into paying their expensive fees up front by taking them right out of your refund. Here at Halls on Post, we do things a lot differently. We will prepare your return, review it with you, e-file it, and release your file copy, and you will not have to pay in advance for any of these services. Sim racers, please believe me when I tell you that we are the only tax practice out there that will allow you to pay after you receive your refund. The only catch is this: you promise me that when your refund arrives, you will make Halls on Post Incorporated the very first check you write. So make the switch to Halls on Post Inc. We will hop right on it and treat you respectfully, discreetly, and fairly. No gimmicks and no hidden fees.
Good Lord, we have had an eventful second half here of the ETV Live Pit Report, as I think we could say the least, Dakota. Got a little bit of a group session right now, and if you want to join the group session, 317-489-9388. We have about 12 minutes left of the program. Mark, you just came in towards the end of that last segment. Hot and heavy discussions about the Kyle Larson incident and everything that took place in Daytona. If you just want to touch a little bit more, I know you said that there's really nothing that NASCAR could do. I'm kind of on the same page with you, but if you want to elaborate a little bit more on what you were saying before we went to break, and then we can continue the discussion with Dakota and Craig.
NASCAR is going to continue to strive for safety. Ever since Dale Earnhardt died, NASCAR's been on the edge of safety and somebody getting killed and stuff. But these guys are putting their bodies and going through the most extreme conditions. So I mean, stuff's going to happen. I mean, if you walk down the road, there is likability that you're going to get hurt. If you fly in a plane, there's likability that the plane may crash. Stuff happens. It's life. It's not meant to be perfect or whatever, you know. But I think, you know, you move the fans back, you know, you're already, NASCAR's already involving themselves enough, as like they said in Daytona, you know, all the drivers and crews have said, well, instead of tearing up millions of dollars of equipment, you know, let's just run single file. To me, it was the most boring Daytona 500 I've ever watched. I fell asleep. I left and went and rode horses and came back to see who actually won the deal, you know. It was just so boring. It was entertaining, and I was so thankful that I did not go and pay the money to go to that race. So for all the fans that was at the race, they get their money's worth. So I think NASCAR essentially ripped off, and the teams and drivers ripped off every fan that was there that went to go see a show. And
well,
we want to see the cars race, you know.
Well, I could promise you, I felt the same way. Got kind of getting ripped off of a show. I mean, to sit there single file at times. I mean, if you were a really like passionate race fan like how I am, I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but I'm sure I found more entertaining parts of that race just for the strategy aspect of the race but it didn't look good on TV. And just like the average fan who doesn't go there with the scanner, listening to their favorite driver or to the MRN broadcast or anything like that, and I understand where that's coming from. And like I said, I think just from watching the race, I don't think it was totally the fact that the drivers were scared based off of what happened on Saturday. I know Wesley said he had the concern driving to the track on Sunday, just hoping to God that something didn't go wrong. I didn't have that fear. I was more part of the group just thankful that no one died, because Saturday night before I went to bed, I learned on the internet that everyone who was admitted to the hospital was in a stable condition. That's what I was thankful for personally, because Saturday was a scary, it was like a scary, like eerie, unknown feeling. It was just like a dead silence at the track Saturday. No one left the track. The security guards, they were there. They were pretty much telling people, if you don't leave the track, you're going to get arrested. As soon as we walked out the track, as I walked out with Craig, there were at least 18 to 20 evacs just waiting out there to carry people away in stretchers. And well, I don't think that had as big a much impact on the race on Sunday as it did Saturday. But before we talk more about Sunday, I think from a safety aspect for Saturday, the car did, like how you said, Mark, the car did exactly what it was supposed to do. When a NASCAR stock car makes contact with an immovable object, heavy contact, at the force of impact, the car is made to come apart, to exert the energy, right. So all the energy spread, it goes wherever, and it doesn't all stay within the car and go towards the driver that could really get him seriously hurt. Because 99.9% of the time, the driver hits the wall. He doesn't hit a catch fence. So it's not like the fans are ever in harm anyway. The only thing I could think about doing, I'm sure there has to be some type of with the technology that we have, there has to be some other type of solution that could work better than a catch fence. If not, yeah, I'm sure there's another solution out there that could work better than a catch fence. Just like how we found a better solution with the safety for the cars. It was a work in progress. You think back to '07 when the COT was finally established, but the years of research before that, it really took off after Dale Sr. unfortunately had his incident. But even before then, there was research on how to make these cars safer, and look how long it took for us to get to this point. And, not saying it's going to take as long, but maybe it might even take longer when it comes to the catch fence. But I really believe that there's an alternative out there, and I think it's very safe to say that if there is an alternative out there, NASCAR will figure it out.
Yeah, I think, in all honesty, I think that they fixed the problem Saturday night when they took the gate out of the fence. That was essentially what ripped the car apart, is when it hit that gate, because before then it was just doing its job, and then once the car caught the gate, it ripped the car down. So I think that they fixed the problem Saturday night when they took the gate out of the fence, and I know that they've got the gates there, so that the flag stand can have access to everything. Maybe just let the flag then get a few more miles and take all the gates and the fences, and just keep the service, the catch service smooth, but they'll figure something out and do something that, that rests the media, that NASCAR did everything they were supposed to do.
I agree.
But well,
go ahead, Craig.
And I've got to cut I've got to cut my end short, guys. I've got to get on out of here. I've been racing in the RSR Asphalt Series, Salt Lake tonight, so I've got to get ready to go to that race, and we'll be racing in Daytona. So hopefully everything goes smooth there. And before I go, I just want to tell JD Webb I hope he gets well soon and gets better soon. And we'll be running our ETV Live Series car tonight, and hopefully we can put it in the front.
And good luck. We'll all be tuning into that. And good luck to you in the race. And as he said, we all wish JD a speedy recovery. He's doing well. I know he's listening right now. Mark, thank you for your time tonight. So, Craig, what were you about to touch on?
Well, you were talking about Earnhardt, and I do believe he was the one who said that once the restrictor plates were installed in, late 80s, that maybe we should look at moving the stands back and not having restrictor plates. Possibly keep restrictor plates, but move the stands back. Maybe that's the direction NASCAR and the racetrack should head.
Well, I agree with you. I think that, and a lot of venues, the seats are moved back. I know Kentucky, one of the newer venues, their seats, they're elevated and they're pushed back. I think that's definitely a step in the right direction. For the people who are going to complain, oh, they won't be as close to the action or some BS like that, I would never, let alone a restrictor plate track, I would never go to a race to sit in the front row. If I'm going to go to a race, I have to see majority, if not all, the track. Otherwise, I might as well just stay home and watch it on TV. I don't want to pay $100-something to sit row 1 to, oh, here they come, and then blow my eardrums out, and then there they go for 200 times. I think that's a waste of money. So I don't see a problem in moving the seats back, raising the seats up, and it makes it where every seat is a good seat, where you can see majority of the track. I think that's an excellent step in the right direction. But as for the catch fence, I really strongly believe there's another alternative, and I think NASCAR has to push forward to that. I think after with all the unfortunate national media attention and the unfortunate incident that took place on Saturday, I think there's going to be a stronger push for that more than ever, and I think we're going to resolve the issue within a matter of years. But in the meantime, just to touch on Sunday again, Craig, you were there. You could speak for it, and yeah, the race sucked, but I don't think all of it had to do with the event that took place on Saturday. I think if the obvious, I think Dave Moody made the post, or he had his article on the Godfather website, which was an excellent article. He said, don't blame the airplane, blame the pilot. The drivers chose not to go down there, so they stayed up high and whatever. But if the car was good enough where they could go downstairs and make some headway, by all means they would have done so. So I think, my opinion, I think they need to open the restrictor plate up a little bit more, which I know is kind of like a freak thing to say after the incident on Saturday. I think they need to give them a little bit more. I think they need to raise the spoilers a little bit. Give them some drag. Maybe even put those wicker blades up on the roof. Make a bigger hole in the air. And then even if they go single file around the outside like how they did in the 80s, that lead car, he puts a bigger hole in the air. It'll give the second place, the third place guy a bigger run. Maybe we bring the slingshot back after all these years.
Absolutely. I definitely disagree with the person who said that it was because of the wreck on Saturday. If we had seen crazy racing in the qualifying races or any other time on the track, sure, that could possibly be an explanation. But the fact is, the shootout, or, the sprint, whatever it's called.
Sprint Unlimited, who the hell cares? But yeah, I know what you're saying. That and the duels, it was just, they were uneventful. And the NASCAR had enough signs throughout the 10 days being down there that Sunday's race was going to be a snoozer. And as you know, the main excuse was, we just need more cars. We just need more cars. Well, they got their more cars on Sunday, and all it did was just add more cars to the train.
Right, and if you look at the payout for first place, it was, I believe, about 1.5, 1.6 million. Finishing 20th, not quite over $1 million. At that point of the day, whether people did wreck the day before or they didn't, members are going to go for it. You don't get into the 500 and expect to finish 20th. You want your name on the trophy. And if it was, it wasn't that the drivers didn't want to do it. The cars were the problem. Keselowski was on the bottom line for, 50, 20 laps at the end, and he was giving it his damnedest, but he still couldn't do anything with it. And, Keselowski's the one who flipped at Atlanta because of Edwards. He is not too concerned with wrecking. He's willing to go for it to get that prize at the end, and he could do absolutely nothing with it. So, maybe the Gen 6 cars on the restrictor plate tracks, maybe it's not going to be the best show. But last year, the restrictor plate tracks were that show because everyone was together. Everyone was racing at the end. But then your mile-and-a-half tracks, some of the most boring races of the year. So in my opinion, if we have to give up restrictor plate tracks in order to get better racing for the other 32 races throughout the season, I accept that. You know, eventually, just like with the Car of Tomorrow, the first few races were terrible, but they eventually adapted to it, and things got better. And so far, we're trying to judge the Gen 6 by one race at Daytona, which is a complete anomaly for other tracks.
I
I think
100%
it's way
agree.
too early.
And I don't want to cut you off, but we have 20 seconds left in the program. Dakota, I appreciate you coming in tonight. I hope to see you next week if you could make it. This was a great discussion we had tonight. Craig, thank you for coming in as well. We'll touch more on this topic next week, and we'll talk about Phoenix and the events ahead. I am Kyle Taraska for Dakota Airman. This is the ETV Live Pit Report powered by the HD Radio Network, and we will see you live next week, 7:30 Eastern.